Carrie Witt-Bailey, and I serve as the Director of Community Development here for the City of Muncie. And we are so glad that you are here this evening. I have to tell you a little bit about the how we got to this point. This time last year, I think it was August last year, we were having some discussions about the upcoming tax sale. And last year, 2012, was my first year working with Mayor Tyler, and we were learning lots of things. And one of the things I didn't know a lot about was the tax sale process. And so I thought, I bet if I don't know everything there is to know, I bet there's some other people that don't know either. And we have an expert who is no longer living here in Delaware County, but is a very good friend of ours and a very knowledgeable person when it comes to tax sales. And we couldn't think of a better person to come in and share information with us. This was in 2012. After that meeting and that session, we heard nothing but positive comments and responses. Oh, we need to do this again next year. Let's do that again before we have the tax sale again. And so what we did was we're having it again for all of you who are here today, and we are recording this for those who aren't able to come here in person. So I would like to go ahead and get us started this evening, and I would like to introduce to all of you Joe Edwards, who is from SRI. You may have seen him before, and this, I know he'll make it a very comfortable setting, and you'll be able to ask lots of questions. So don't go away with your questions, because he will have the answers for you this evening. So let's give him a hand as he comes.
Thank you. A couple quick administrative things before we start. Please shut these things off. There's nobody here that's harder to do than me. And we'll have a little therapy session out in the hallway when we're done. I've been flying here lately, and it's pretty tough to turn that off when the FAA tells you to, but that's kind of what this is. It'll interrupt our session. Thanks for that introduction. I love being here. Born and raised in Muncie. Went to schools in Muncie, went to Ball State, left long enough to go to IU Law School, came back, and I've been here ever since until about 6 months ago. And my last child got out of high school, and I decided it was time to not commute to Indianapolis like I've been doing for the last 14 years. So I'm still a Muncie guy, so glad to be here. My goal is to make sure nobody buys at a tax sale without knowing what they're doing. I'm reminded of a little story about the guy that went into a bar and ordered 10 martinis, and he just started slamming those down like this, just one right after the other. And he got to about number 5 or 6, and the bartender says, "Oh my gosh, buddy," I've never seen anybody go through martinis like that. He said, "What's going on?" The guy said, "If you had what I had, you'd be drinking them like that too." And the guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry, what do you have?" And he said, 50 cents. So I don't want you guys to only have 50 cents when you leave the tax sale and go to the bar. So make sure you know what you're doing, and that's what I'm here to tell you about. Let me tell you a little bit about the tax sale procedure and the process and how it works, and even the details of the sale, if you all are brave enough to come out to the fairgrounds on October 1st and join us. Let me tell you how that operates. First of all, what will be offered for sale out there at the fairgrounds will be liens. You're not buying a property. You're not going to leave that sale thinking, "Oh, I bought this property over there on Meeker. I can go now tomorrow and start moving my stuff in or get the people out." You're buying a lien. You're just like a mortgage holder. Basically, with a lien, that's the minimum bid, the amount you bid on at the sale. Your purchase price is what your lien is. And you'll get a certificate that is the evidence of that. And I would say keep that in a safe place. It's just like an evidence of a mortgage or anything like that. That has a value for your minimum bid amount or your purchase price. So you're not buying property, and if you go to the property, you'll be trespassing. You have no legal right to go on the property any more than, could you imagine your mortgage holder just randomly on September 3rd walking into your house and, or saying, "Hey, we don't like what you're doing here. Your grass isn't short enough," or whatever. Your mortgage company's going to come to your house and start making repairs or doing things. Don't go on the property. You are trespassing. And don't assume because it looks like it's vacant that it is. There's lots of experiences with that in sheriff's sale and tax sale, where it looks vacant, and not everybody's house that looks vacant is, and you end up getting shot at or whatever. Don't go on the property. And there's always a few people at every sale that say, well, this is a lot that next to my house. I've been mowing this lot for 20 years. I see some of you nodding. That's the way it works. You've been trespassing for 20 years. Congratulations, and move forward at your own risk. You will get no paperwork at the tax sale that will give you any specific right to go on that property and do anything. So just be cautious about that. Use good judgment. Certainly, if it's a house where you see cars and kids and bikes in the driveway, obviously there's somebody living there. So use your judgment. Now, if you're a successful bidder, there's two things that are going to happen as a result of that bid. One of two things. The owners of those properties have 1 year to redeem the property. And what that means is they got to come in affirmatively, walk into the Delaware County Courthouse, go to the auditor's office, and they will have to pay a sum of money to redeem the property. And what happens if the property redeems, if you're the buyer, then you won't get the deed. You'll never get the deed to that. I don't say never, but certainly in this tax sale cycle, you won't get a deed to it. So that's the bad news, I guess, if you really want that property. But the good news is you're going to get all your money back, and you're going to get it back with interest. And the interest rate you're going to get it back is higher than, unless anybody's getting over 10% here on their money. And I'd love to talk to you afterwards if you are, and hopefully it's a legal investment. But if you are, then this is a great investment. But 10% return minimum on your money. And that interest is figured bizarrely. So let me explain it to you, because it's not just, okay, I paid $10,000 for this property, I'm going to get 10% back. It's not that simple, and I'll explain it to you. Every property on that tax sale list will have a minimum bid. What that minimum bid amounts to is all of the back taxes, penalties, interest, tax sale costs, special assessments, anything that's ever been put on that property up until through the end of this calendar year will be on there, including the November taxes. Okay? If you buy a certificate, there's no November taxes due. It's part of the minimum bid. If you look on our website at some point and you see a list with two numbers and it says price before sale and price at the sale, the difference in those two is the November tax. Because if I'm an owner of property, I can't be forced on October 1st to pay something that's not due. But if you're a buyer, you are forced to, because the statute says you have to. So when you purchase at the sale on November 1st, you're paying November taxes. So you don't have to worry about, you're paying everything that's due through the end of the year. And that's what the statute says. So that's why we do it. So you will earn on that minimum bid 10% immediately. So if that minimum bid is $1,000 and you buy it and it redeems the next day, you're going to get $1,100 back. Which is a pretty good deal when you think about you earned $100 in one day, what that would annualize to. But that's a pretty good investment. Now, if you bid $10,000 and the property redeems, you get back 10%, as I said, on that minimum bid amount. But on that $9,000 difference, it's figured on a per day basis, 10% per annum instead of just a straight 10%. So it will go up each and every day. But then it goes up to 15% after 6 months. So if somebody redeems a property after 6 months, then that minimum bid amount goes up to 15%, and the 10% per annum will continue on the surplus. Does that make sense? The difference between a minimum bid and what you bid is called the surplus. Think of it as the owner, think of it as equity. If I have a house in Gaston that's up on the tax sale, and I've paid my mortgage for 20 years, and suddenly I got disabled or lost my job or whatever, can't finish paying for it, it's on the tax sale. I may owe $10,000 and I paid $50,000. So you're going to pay more than 10 because you know it's worth 50. You may pay up to 25 or 30. The difference is the surplus, and that money belongs to me. It's like my equity. And if there's mortgages, if there's judgments, that's between me and those people. They can come in and go to court and get that money if they want. But between you and me, I get that money because that's my equity I've built up in that house. But the surplus amount, that money will bear interest at 10% per annum for the year. So the later in the year the property redeems, the more interest you'll earn, obviously, on that amount. The 10% on the minimum bid goes to 15% at the end of 6 months. So you're still, I mean, it's a great investment. So there's a reason why that room at the fairgrounds will be full, and there's a reason why there'll be a lot of people here from places all over the corner of the country. And they send in people from New Jersey and Florida, and there's lots of out-of-state bidders. So if you see a house that, and there's a lot of reasons properties on tax sale and reasons why they slip through the cracks. And in some of the counties we've done tax sales, and we do them in 82 counties out of the 92 in Indiana. But you get down around Geist, we had Dwight Freeney's house on there one year because he had sold it. It was going through the closing, and somehow or another nobody paid the taxes. And we had Reggie Miller's house the year his ex-wife allegedly burned it. I don't think that it was ever proven. And we had Mark Jackson one year. So you get, but that's because those people have too many people handling, too many chefs, not enough, too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And that's why all these handlers of these rich and famous people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So when you get a house like that that's worth $500,000, then expect the surplus to be high because they know it's going to redeem. We knew Reggie Miller's house was not going to go and be sold and go to deed. It was going to redeem. So investors know that they're going to get instant, quick money and good cash on those kind of properties. The best example locally couldn't be much closer. The Star Bank building was on the tax sale 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know, it sold for $5 million or something. It redeemed a couple weeks later. Somebody got a pretty good return on that. Granted, they had to have $5 million to start, or whatever it was, but they still got a good return because they got 10% of the minimum bid, 10% per annum. And we sold a hotel up at Marion a couple of years ago. Same deal. They redeemed right away because somebody screwed up. It's not because they didn't have the money. They just didn't. The right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing. So if the property redeems, you will get all your money back plus interest. Now during this 1 year redemption period, you got some stuff you got to do. Within 9 months of October 1st, in this case on October 1st because that's when the sale is, within 9 months of the sale date, the buyer must send a certified mail notice to every person who has a substantial property interest in the property. And what that means is anybody who has a lien that's in the recorder's office or a lien in the county clerk's office. And that can be judgment liens, it can be IRS liens, because they get recorded as well. It can be state tax liens, it can be contract purchasers, contract liens. People have bought the property on contract and recorded the contract. And obviously simple mortgages, mechanics liens, all those things are recorded in the recorder's office, or judgment liens are found in the clerk's office. Those people all have to be found and a notice mailed to them by certified mail. And to find them, you need to do a title search. And I would never recommend that you think because you went to real estate school that you can do a title search. Because if you miss a lien and you're standing in front of a judge a year down the line and you're telling them you've searched and found all the liens, and there's somebody in court saying, I didn't get a copy of anything. Well, I didn't find them. I didn't know what I was doing. That's not going to fly. Make sure you hire a title company to do this work. Get a professional to do it. Get somebody. Bottom line is, if you hire a title company and they screw up, guess what? They got to bail you out of it, or their insurance company. So, and likewise, with the sending of the certified mail notices, get a lawyer to do that work. They're very legalistic documents. The I's have to be dotted, T's crossed. Judges won't put up with them not being exactly correct. So make sure, and we had a case recently, we were involved in it, but a buyer bought a property and missed the redemption date. I don't know if they couldn't count or if it was a leap year, but they missed it by 1 day. And they lost their investment because their notice was wrong. The people came in to redeem it 1 day late, which was the day that was on the notice, and the county said, well, you're late. Well, this is the notice we got from the buyer. Well, the county's got nothing to do with it. They didn't touch it. They didn't see it. It came from you guys. So that investor lost their money. So make sure you have, if you had an attorney do that work, then guess what? If the attorney can't count, then they probably went to IU, not Purdue. But it's a tough crowd. I went to IU and not Purdue. Just so you know, I can say that. I can say that since, well, I went to Ball State too, so I've got double whammy. So that you can then go to the lawyer and say, hey, what are you going to do? You screwed this up. I lost my investment. He's got malpractice, hopefully, or whatever, or she. So that's another reason you want to hire professionals. Cover your own fannies a little bit. Let them take the heat for their mistakes. All of these things that I'm talking about, title searches and lawyers, cost money. And you're entitled to be reimbursed for those costs if the property redeems. Okay? So if the property doesn't redeem, guess what? That's just the cost of buying a piece of real estate. If you go buy a piece of real estate on the market, you look at your closing costs. Oh my gosh, you'll be getting off easy in this case compared to what you got to pay at a closing, points and closing costs, deed fees, blah, 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 blah. You don't have any of that. All you have, title search, attorney's fees. The judge in Delaware County will set a ceiling on how much you can be reimbursed, and it's going to be under what the market bears, but it's to keep unscrupulous buyers from putting $1,000 on everything or $2,000 in ridiculous amounts, and then punishes the owner when they try to redeem. It's sent the price of redemption so high they can't afford it because they'll fill out their 137B form, which I'll tell you about in a minute, which confirms how much they paid for these costs, and they're exorbitant, and then the person can't redeem. So on the morning of the sale, I will tell you, of course, the judge hasn't signed his order yet, and he won't sign it, fill those numbers in until the week before the sale, 3 days before the sale, actually by statute. So what will happen is I'll announce that morning. The judge has set the maximum allowable title cost at $200, which will be over what the market will bear. You can easily get a title search done for $200. And he set the attorney's fees at $400. So that is the amount of money that when you go to your lawyer, you go to your title search company, you say, you know, I need title search done, but I want to make sure it's not going to exceed $200 because that's how I can be reimbursed. I don't want this, if the property redeems, I don't want this to cost me any money. It shouldn't. Designed so it won't. Likewise with the attorney's fee. There's plenty of attorneys in Muncie, Anderson, Hartford that will do this work for whatever the amount is. They won't charge less. I mean, I'm just saying, if they can get total reimbursement, they're going to charge right up to what they can be reimbursed. And what that means then is when the property redeems, you will get all that money back. You will get your attorney's fees and you will get your title search costs. Now, the thing you got to understand though is you must file a form with the auditor's office. And it's called a 137B form. The day of the sale, we'll have some of them. They're on our website, and the website's on the front of that document too, by the way, if you want to go on there. All the information I'm telling you and a lot more is on that website. Glossary of terms, frequently asked questions, all that good stuff. Timelines, all kinds of stuff. But at the day of the sale, we'll have those forms. You can get them on the website. You can download them. The auditor's office has them, supply of them as well. That form must be filled out when you pay and incur those costs. So when you walk to ABC Title Company and you pay for your title search, take your receipt, fill out that form, and go across the street to the auditor's office and file that form. Don't procrastinate. Don't throw it on the seat of your truck and you got to go pick up little Johnny at school, and 5 days later you run in there to do it and your property's already redeemed. Then you got to go fight with the title company to try to get your money back because you won't be reimbursed. But what most of you'll do is you'll just eat that $100 or whatever because it's not worth fighting about. But don't do that, and then you won't have to worry about it. File it simultaneously when you pay and incur those costs. Take your receipts with you to the auditor's office. You must have those receipts or the auditor won't accept them. Now there's one other time that you would file a 137B form other than the two things we just talked about, title search and attorney's fees. The other one is subsequent taxes. We all know every year on May 10th that we're expected to pay our real estate taxes. These properties will have real estate taxes due on May 10th. You've paid November, so they're current through the end of the year. But on May 10th, you're going to owe taxes. You aren't. You're not the owner. Right? I've already told you that. You can't go on the property. But it makes sense for you at that point, if the property hasn't redeemed, to call John Doerr's office and say, I need to know, he's the county treasurer, and say, I need to know how much the taxes are on this property. and go in and pay them. Because if you file, and once you do that, then you file a 137B form, again, to be reimbursed if the property redeems between the May 10th taxes and that anniversary date of the sale, 1 year from the date of sale. October, well, it'll be September. How many days in September, Gretchen? Help me here. 30? 30 days. So next year, September 30th will be the last day to redeem, 1 year from the date of sale. So if they redeem in that period of time, you'll get that tax money back too. You know, just don't, there's no reason not to pay the taxes. Because if you end up taking the deed, and let's say you get a deed in the end of October, guess what? You're going to owe May taxes, and there'll be penalties by then. You're going to be paying even more if you don't just pay them. And there's no reason not to, because you're going to get reimbursed if it redeems. And if it doesn't redeem, then you'll get a deed of property that's not delinquent. So I encourage everybody to always pay those taxes, and then, you know, you come a year from now, when you get a deed, you won't be saying, oh, I should have done what that guy said that day up the city hall when he said pay the taxes, because now I owe him plus a penalty. So don't do that. So you basically have 9 months to do this noticing. And strategically, and I've never been on the other side of a tax sale. I've never bought. I've always been on this side. I've always been conducting them and doing the work on the other side. I hear buyers say, I send out my notices right away. Get my title search done. Now, let me tell you another thing real quick to muddy up the waters a little bit. You cannot file a 137B form to seek reimbursement for 30 days after the date of sale. So what's the answer to that question? Don't go hire a title company until November 1st. Why go any sooner? You're not going to get reimbursed if it redeems. But some buyers say they go right away. First, November 1st, they're getting their title search, they got their lawyer lined up, they're getting their notices ready, they're all set to go because they want an early redemption, if they're going to have one, because that 10% is worth more if you get it quicker. It may become 120% or 25 or whatever. I'm not, again, a mathematician for you Purdue people. But it's obviously, if you get it back quicker, it's worth more to you because you can then reinvest it. And a lot of these big buyers will come in. We've already had a couple sales this year, but they'll start coming in. We really do them in earnest starting right now. If you look at our website, this week really starts, and then next week, every day, we have a sale somewhere in Indiana. And the people come in from out of state with millions, and they're encouraged by their bosses to place, $100 million in Indiana. And they'll go to a big sale early. We got Vigo County next Monday. They'll have a couple thousand on their list. And the big investor, and they love those early. They go in and invest in. They'll send their notices up to 30 days and get going right on it. And then by the time the people come in to redeem those properties, they can then go to Delaware County, or then they can go, and they couldn't really do Delaware because it's not enough time, but they can go to our other sales all October right up until first part of November. So they can turn that 10% around several times, reinvest it, and that's worth a lot more money to them. But then you got the buyers who say, I'm going to wait till after that becomes 15%. After 6 months. I'm not going to send my notices until the 5th month. And that way, by the time it gets redeemed, I'll be getting 15% back on my investment on that minimum bid amount. So I don't know the strategy. I'm not telling you one's better than the other because I don't know. I've never, it's easy to tell you what I hear, but it's not ever been my money. So I can't really give you a real practice. But something to think about as a buyer. I probably Google it and get lots of stuff on tax lien buyer strategies, because there are lots of, these kinds of sales go on in many states. We only do them I think we're in 5 or 6 states now, but every state's a little different. But the big money comes in from all over for these sales. So there's obviously a lot of people making a lot of money doing this. So what happens if you have done everything you're supposed to do? You've got all your notices out. You did it. Well, if you decide to do it early in the game, you did it in the first 3 months, or do it late in the game, you did it the last, month, 5th or 6th, and then you just wait for the 9 months. Obviously, if the property redeems, you hear from the auditor's office, and they tell you to bring in your certificate and pick up your money. It's very simple. You just sign out a claim form. It says this is how much you get back on the redemption, and you will get every penny that you invested, plus the interest, plus the 137B form reimbursements. That's what you'll get. That's all, but that's more than what you spent. So you come out way over whole. If you don't hear from the auditor's office and a year passes, then your property is primed to get a deed. And there's some more notices that have to be sent out at that 1 year point. I always recommend, because lawyers are hard to deal with. And I always think if you got a lawyer that did your noticing on the front end to these interested parties, it makes sense to go to that same lawyer. They know you, you know them, they know the property. Changing lawyers all the time just costs you money. So unless you have a real problem with that lawyer, didn't like him, her, or didn't appreciate the way he acted or whatever, then don't go back. But otherwise, use the same lawyer. They know where the property is. They've got your certificate. They've already done all this work already for you. And then they've got the list of your interested parties. They can do then the notices required at that point, at which you have to do to petition the court. But within days, weeks of the end of the redemption period, you file a petition with the court to get your deed, and the judge doesn't hold it. I mean, it's not like you have to go into court like you would for a divorce or a civil case or anything like that. You don't have to go in. The judge has a hearing. He may require your lawyer to be there, may not. But basically, we'll schedule a hearing. If nobody shows up, then he signs the order for your deed. Now, the order for the deed then goes to the auditor, because it basically directs the auditor to prepare your deed, and the auditor then prepares the deed. Actually, we do it for them, but it's part of our contract with the auditor. Prepare the deeds, and then you'll get, again, another notice, whether it's a phone call or a little written notice in the mail that says your deed's ready. You can come in and pick it up. At that point, you've got the property, you own it, and guess what now? You can go out there, tell the people who live there that they're squatters. You can paint the house. You can mow it without trespassing like you've been doing for 20 years. So that's basically the 1 year process from October 1st, from the date of sale, and how this whole process works and what to expect. Now, everything I've told you is in that handout. We hand those out at the sale. They'll be available October 1st. They're on our website. I really encourage you, if you're serious about bidding, to go on the website and look around and find out more information. I couldn't stand here for 4 hours and talk and still cover everything. So, and I'm not that good. So just go out there and look at all the stuff that's available to you. The sale is a buyer beware sale. Plain and simple. There's not any warranties on this stuff. Whether it's, I mean, the county basically is telling you, we have a piece of real estate, and there's a number that goes with it, and associated with that number are back due taxes, penalties, interest, and costs. That's your warranty. They're not telling you that the property exists. They're not telling you that it isn't underwater, that it isn't glowing in the dark. I mean, we don't have any issue. We don't know, a city doesn't know about environmental issues all the time. They're not telling you that it isn't a 2-foot strip of land between two other pieces of property. No warranties. There's no, it's buyer beware, caveat emptor. You can't come in the next day or 2 days later like when you bought that Electrolux vacuum at your door and have a 3-day rescission period. If you walked in the next week and said, oops, I made a mistake, their response is going to be tough potatoes, basically. You bid, you bought. And I encourage you, because of that, to do your due diligence. Do your research. Delaware County's got a pretty good GIS system. You can do a lot of it at home in your jammies. You just sit at home and go on that website, look up these properties on the GIS system. You can get a lot of information. You can get assessed values. You can get widths of lots. There's the plat map kind of thing. You can look at all that from home. In the old days, you used to go to courthouse, comb through records. We've made it too easy on buyer. You can do most of that at home. I would never personally buy without doing a drive-by, because even a plat map that you're looking at is not going to be it's not going to be current to the day. And even if you did a drive-by a week before the sale, we've had cases where properties have burned in that 1 week. I mean, when you do enough properties, or enough tragedies like that happen. So I would never buy at a tax sale without driving by a property, because what you're looking at on there can only be so current. And even a really good GIS system like we have in Delaware County is not going to be current through maybe 6 or 8 months. We have a new kind of phenomenon in this country called the social risk. And basically, that insurance companies are really struggling with the idea that so many people are losing their homes to foreclosure and to tax sale that they're not leaving elegantly. They're trashing the places. And I understand taking the stove and taking the refrigerator and the fans and all that, but they're taking the toilets and the wiring, and they're spray painting on the walls, or they're burning things, or they're, the stories are endless, and for every story there's one that's equally gross or more gross. So just that's a risk that everybody takes when you buy one of these properties. And it's the same in sheriff sales, as is. Buyer beware. If you think that house is vacant and you're comfortable looking in a window, good luck, because you might be looking at a double barrel when you go up there and look in, because you don't know if it's vacant. So just be very, very careful at anything like that. So no warnings. Just understand that whatever there's risk. Tax sales, you can't get this kind of return without there being a risk. Or this room, we'd have to hold this at Lucas Oil Stadium, because everybody would want to get 10 and 15% with no risk. And not every property, you could buy 10 properties and come out ahead on 8, lose your fanny on 2. There's a big balancing act when you buy these. So understand there's always some risk involved with this kind of return on your investment. Now, one of the things you can also do on the website, you can register as a bidder. Encourage you to do that. None of this costs any money, whether you do it live the morning of the sale or online, but it's just a little bit easier on you the morning of the sale, because you don't have to fill out paperwork. You can just come up and hand us something and you can get a number. But go in there and you can see where there's registration for the bidders. It's on the far left column of that website. But you don't have to. The morning of the sale, we'll be there early. If you want to bid, you can get there at 9 o'clock and fill out your little form, and we'll get you a bidder number. A sale will start, unless there's a problem, the sale will start right at 10. By problem, I mean if there's some properties that were taken off the last minute. A lot of times people file bankruptcy the morning of a tax sale or the afternoon before. And if that happens, then we've got some last minute ones to take off and that kind of thing. So our goal always is to start right at 10. I think generally we start right at 10 on our sales, and at the worst case scenario, 10:05 or 10:10, but it wouldn't be a big delay unless there'd be a huge issue of some kind with a judge or something. But it just doesn't happen. So when you come out there, plan to be there early enough to get registered and get settled in. Rooms are usually pretty full, and we'll start right on time. In this county, we do something a little different than we do in most counties. If you are there to bid on 1 or 2 properties, you'll have an opportunity to bid early and get out. And we don't do that very often. But I can go back to our now county recorder, who was a treasurer 1,000 years ago, and she had a member from the State Board of Accounts that came to the sale, and he wanted one property next to his house, and it was out in Cowan, and it was the last taxing unit. And he sat there for 5 or 6 hours waiting on that one property. And he said, why are the people, if a lot of those bidders, like I've just described them, they're there all day. They're bidding for properties on every page of our 40-page list. They want someone on every page. Why don't we take the people who just want 1 or 2 properties, the locals? It makes everybody happy. It made the treasurer very happy. It made the local people very happy, because they got to bid on their onesie twosies, as we called them. And at the start of the sale, I'll say, raise your hand if you're here to bid on 1 or 2 properties. And half the crowd will do that. And I'll take them until, occasionally some people try to abuse it and say, you guys get their 4th one. I say, you're done. I'm not taking any more of yours. And I'll do that. And then when we get to the point where everybody's done raising their hand, then we kind of take a quick break, let everybody breathe, get those people out of the room, the onesie twosies, and then all that's left are the investors, the big money guys. They're going to be there all day anyway. They like to clear the room out so they can kind of get in a better position in the room. And there's always people that are there with youngsters that these big buyers get annoyed, and it's like those crazy people on the airplanes that act like kids aren't allowed to travel. And these guys are the same way. They're very serious and investing a lot of money. So we do everybody a favor by doing that. You guys don't have to waste your day. You can get in and out. You might not get what you want, but you know that by 11 o'clock. You can start your day. So we will do it that way this year, as I assume. We've always done it, we've done that way for probably, I don't know, Jane Laster hadn't been the treasurer for at least 10 years, maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, Warren Beebe was 8, and yeah, probably 10 years. So we'll do it again that way this year, I'm sure. And so you don't worry about coming. Let's say it will last, we'll be finished by mid-afternoon at the latest. Because once we get out the onesie, twosie buyers out of the room, it goes very fast. Because there's certain parts of the city where people won't be bidding. It goes very fast on those pages. So if you want to stay all day, certainly you're welcome to, but I can tell you it'll be done probably in the early afternoon. I don't even know what parcel count is now. We're probably at about a couple thousand. Yes, ma'am.
I'm afraid I'll forget my question. If I went in to bid on just one property, like you said, I bid first and then I left, that property is still gonna come up, isn't it?
No, it's going to sell. Because you're going to raise your hand and say, I want to bid on page 47, parcel number 29.
And so at that time, it opens.
And then we open up, anybody want to bid on this property, and we start the auction.
Okay.
And you may get outbid or you may get it. I mean, just depends on the nature of the property, but you don't get, you know, the thing that, when we first started doing this, want to make sure people understand, doesn't give you priority as a onesie, twosie buyer. You have no priority over the guy that's here from New Jersey. I mean, I've had some county treasurers that will say, he wants to stand up before the sale. There was one guy down in Clark County, Dick Jones, and he didn't like these out-of-state investors. So he'd get up before the sale and say, I just want you guys to know I expect my local people to get priority, and if there's a little old lady on the front row wants a and they ignored him. He, couldn't control that, but he thought his presence and encouragement for people to do that would, well, at one time it might have, but it's become very competitive, and it's all about investing money. It's not about, taking care of a local person. So you won't have any priority, and you might say, I want to bid on this one, and we start the bidding, and you're willing to spend $5,000, and second bid, we're up to 20, and you get up and leave, but you're done. You don't have to wait all day for that to happen, which makes you not dislike me nearly as much.
I just thought the way that I understood you saying, I could put my bid in and then I could leave.
No.
I was taking a chance.
It's all public auction.
Not.
Yeah, no, it's all public, no proxies, no written bids, nobody on the telephone, none of that. It's a live auction, just like it would if you went to the farm auction down the street or a car auction or anything else. So it's, all it does is it basically gets the people out of the room. Whether you get it or not, it gets the people out of the room that aren't normally going to spend their day there. The rest of the people are. They're going to be there all day. And they're not, they know they're going to get stuff because they're going to come with a pot full of money. They're going to have to pay before the day's over anyway. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's just say I'm not going to probably not.
You can be a Tuesday. You'll be okay.
And I'm one of those old ladies that's
Yeah, in the front.
so, if I put a bid on it, these investors from all around the country, are they gonna be bidding on my onesie?
Yeah, it'd be just like right now in this room. I say, okay.
So they're gonna be there during the onesie?
They're going to be, oh yeah, it's all going to start at 10 o'clock. I'm going to talk for 20 minutes.
So I'm still competing with
You're compete, yeah, and then when after I get done talking, I'm going to say, okay, who here wants to bid on one or two properties? And a whole bunch of people raise their hands, and I'll just kind of start working through the room. It doesn't, waving your paddle like this doesn't do any good. I'm going to get to everybody. Just be patient. And once, and somebody will stand up or sit there and say, I want, I've got 3, and I'll say, well, that's okay, and there may be 3 in a row, because they're right next door to their house or whatever. So it'll all be done, and then you check out. You will then, before you leave, you will get the documents that you need to go pay. The people that are there till 2 or 3 probably won't get their documents in time to pay the day of the sale. They'll have to pay the next morning. Because
you'll know then,
you'll know right then if you got it.
just like at a river auction.
Yeah, I'll say sold to bidder number 12. I'll go right to the next one. If you're bidder number 12 and you're done for the day, you just get up and walk up to the front table. I'll have directed everybody and say, and hold up they'll say, what's your number are you? And they'll say bidder 12. They'll print out your stuff and tell you to go downtown and pay. It's really simple. Sounds terribly confusing, doesn't it?
Well, I think, I don't know, but I don't know about everybody else, but, you think that maybe
Oh, yeah.
whatever, but they don't redeem it, then I can ask them to leave.
True, yeah, at the end of 1 year, right.
So-
Because their contract is with the people that lost it,
Okay, so
and you
it
can,
still say rented and be a home for someone during this.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't raise this issue around Indianapolis, certainly not around the State House, but the only people in this whole process that don't get notified of any of this stuff is a renter. And you know, there's some solutions to that, and some, you know, posting the property, which I don't propose at all, because that's a huge expense and a big bunch of trouble. But even a first-class letter to occupant, because you know, we send, the certified mail notices go to owners of record, not necessarily people at that house. I mean, you know, I can be the owner of a record of my house in Gaston, but I don't live there. And that notice is coming to me, and I may have a contract with them that says I'm supposed to be the taxes, but I'm going, I'm not paying them. Not gonna hurt me, you're the one that's gonna get thrown out. You know, I'm not gonna spend that money now, it's too close to Christmas. So suddenly, the owner, the person living in that house, somebody comes knocking their door and said, I bought this at tax sale last year, you gotta get out. I mean, that happens, and it's a shame. Like I say, I'm not proposing drastic change to the tax sale law this year, and it happens in sheriff's sale law, where people will have their house, of course, sheriff's sale houses tend to be generally higher quality house than a tax sale property, but somebody may be losing at foreclosure, and they know it takes over a year in Indiana before the property ever goes to sale. So they sign a lease with somebody, first month's rent, last month's rent, damage deposit. These young couple, this happened in Hartford City. I mean, it's a sad story. Paid somebody $1,500 or $1,600, paid rent for 2 or 3 months. Somebody comes to the door and says, I just bought your house on the sheriff's sale. So they've got no recourse except to go back to the person that you know, took advantage of it in the first place, and those people are usually long gone by now. So it's really kind of a, you know, I don't know that it's such a huge problem that it needs to be addressed, but to answer your question, obviously that person's got no rights, and that's between the renter and the rentee, the landlord and the tenant. I mean, they entered in the contract, county's got nothing in it, buyer's got nothing in it. That's a contract that has a remedy, but there again, if you gotta find the person. So, yes, ma'am.
What method of payment is it?
Cash or certified funds on a sale day. What are you gonna pay? Cash or certified funds? And all of you, I assume, are local or close to local. Anymore with cross-county banking, you know, people use banks that you can find in every little burg anymore. That used to be kind of hard in the old days to go somewhere and get money and come back. But if you you leave the fairgrounds with your little paperwork, whether it's 11, 12, or noon, or whatever, run to Star or run to, you know, Chase or wherever your bank is, and get the cash, and then go to the courthouse and pay. Yes, sir.
Doesn't have to be done that day?
Yes, by close of business on the day of the sale, usually. I mean, I will give specific times if it changes. The day of the sale, one of the things I'll tell you are the terms, because Delaware County is a little different than most counties, because the sale lasts long enough that it almost becomes impossible for people, the non-onesie Tuesday buyers that are there till 3 in the afternoon, then to go to a bank and get, you know, $250,000 or whatever. And they have that ability, they just don't have the time to do that. So, but I'll announce before the sale the details of those payment terms. But I'm just kind of going on past practice because I've done this sale for a long time. Yes, sir.
So you had 6 months to notify the people that had an interest in the property?
9 months
9 months?
from the date of sale.
Notify them the first time? And you said at the end of the year you had to notify them again?
You have to set, there has to be a notice that says basically, I'm going to court to get a deed to your property. This is your last chance.
But the time's run out.
Yeah, they can't redeem it. But there are some basis for objecting, and one basis will be that you didn't send notice out. So there's a few defenses. I can tell you, people won't show up.
So it didn't make no sense to send out the
Right.
second one if they didn't show them the proof.
The first one is basically notice of the redemption period. And that's why you gotta do it in 9 months. It gives them 3 months to redeem the property. And in the old days, the redemptions were being handled by individuals, the owners of the property. Now, I don't know what the percent is, but a huge percent of the redemptions are being paid by mortgage companies. And they're calling their owners and saying, hey, you're gonna lose your house. We're gonna go redeem it, so we don't lose our investment. And then we're gonna put that money in and refinance your loan so you can pay us back along with your mortgage. So, anymore, it's mostly mortgage companies that are redeeming. But yes, the first notice is to say, you got 3 months. If you don't come in by November 31st, you're gonna lose your property. The other one is going to court, getting a deed. There's gonna be a court hearing on this date. And like I said, no people will show unless, I mean, if it's a real mess or something, your lawyer didn't do his job or something. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a house burning. Would you recommend getting insurance on the property?
Well, it's not easy, but it should be. I mean, you can get insurance. All you can insure it for is the value of your lien, not the value of the property. Because nothing's vested yet. You don't own it. So it's just like mortgage insurance. You know, I mean, your mortgage company, if I take a mortgage out for $10,000 on a $100,000 house, they can't insure it for $100,000. So you can talk to an insurance agent about insuring your lien. That certificate is your lien. It's going to say right on the front, up left corner, how much your lien is. It's what you pay. So it might be of interest to do that. It just depends a little bit on the scenario. I know very few that do it. I mean, I'd be a little too cautious maybe. I'd probably at least try. But I can't, I mean, it's an insurable interest because it's a lien. I mean, yes, ma'am, you got another one in the back?
No, I don't know, I guess I was just thinking what percentages are just like the wondering is it Tuesdays to actually get a property and get to keep it versus you got the mortgage people now and then you said you got the big investors from all over.
Well,
the country.
it's-
Does it sound like it's,
Strictly depends on the property. I mean, it's just,
can you actually, find out who the owner is and then contact that owner and see if they're interested in redeeming it or just letting it go or?
well, at any point prior to the sale, they'd basically be paying their taxes. And, I mean, I don't think, if you want the property, I'm not sure I'd raise it to their attention and say, basically, why don't you go pay your taxes, or, you know, you're interested in selling. I guess you can approach anybody and ask them if they want to sell. But see, prior to the sale, they're not redeeming, they're paying their taxes. Right up till October 1st, as an owner, I can go into the treasurer and pay my taxes, and it comes off the sale.
Right,
Yeah, so,
but if they're not paying their taxes.
and if they don't redeem it, well, that's, I mean, yes, you can notify, I mean, your notice goes out to them. Basically, it tells them,
I mean, before you even bid on something.
yeah, there's nothing to keep you from doing that.
Approach anybody on that list and find out who it is and ask them if they'd be interested in selling it to you and you pay off all the liens on the tax.
Oh, sure, you can do that. I mean, there's nothing to keep you from doing that. And a list in the paper, I recommend, though, you wait, when was that ad out? This week? It's on our website then. Yeah, you can go to our website and get the list in an Excel spreadsheet format. Much easier to search, whether you're searching by zip code, searching by street, searching by town. I mean, I could go in there and see every property that's in Cowan, or Daleville, or whatever. If that's my little town, I want to know whose property is on. So I encourage you to get that list. It's a much easier list to work with. Plus, the list that she's got right there, by the time we get another 2 weeks or so down the road, will be cut down substantially, but that won't reflect it. But the list you get off our website is a real-time list. So if somebody walked into the treasurer's office today at 4 o'clock and paid their property off, and you printed that list out tonight, it's not gonna be on there. It's a real-time list, and much easier to search. You're not gonna be wasting time looking for properties, and then on sale day, you go in and they're not on the list, because they got paid back on October 1st, or on September 1st. Yes, sir.
Where is that list on that website exactly?
You go to the, doing this from memory, I ought to,
After you
click on tax sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, click on it, click on county, then I think it's over on the left, there's a little house, and I'm not sure it says tax sale list, but the little icon's a little house. Click on the house, and it'll take you right, and you can download, I think, a couple of different options in what format, which we've now gone over my head. I know that Excel spreadsheet is the one most people use, but there are other, I think maybe you can download it as a Word document or whatever. Yes, sir.
So you're saying that is a real-time list there on that morning and that property's not on there, it would be up for sale that day, or could they still come in that morning and pay it?
No, they don't allow them to pay the morning of.
Okay.
I think they cut it off on Friday afternoon, maybe at noon, I'm not sure. I have to, probably says in the ad, I don't know. Seems like the treasurer here tells the owners, you have till noon on the Friday before, because with a list the size that we have here, that afternoon on that Friday before the sale, keep talking like this sale's on a Monday, October 1st is a Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it still may be, I'm thinking it might be close of business Friday. And so but that'll be a real time. That doesn't mean that they won't get a bankruptcy served on them on Monday, because I can guarantee you they will. And they might get a bankruptcy served on them on Tuesday morning. Because I've gone to bankruptcy court and testified about the exact time a property sold at a tax sale versus what time that bankruptcy was filed. Crazy, but I've done it a lot. I mean, not a lot, probably 8 or 9 times in my life. And we record the sales, so I usually either make a note or even say, it's 10:06, let's get started. I know what time we started, we can time. It's all done electronically on some fancy little plug in the computer thing. And they can tell me exactly what time a certain property sold. And we had one, I'll never forget, Marshall County, and it was about 7-minute difference. And it sold at tax sale 7 minutes before the bankruptcy file mark in the bankruptcy court. So it was too late. And, sheriff's sales, it happens a lot too, because bankruptcies protect those properties too. So it's an interesting thing. So bankruptcies will be, and if a property goes, if they get a bankruptcy notice after the day of the sale that was filed before, which happens fairly often because bankruptcy notices aren't that great. Bankruptcy court's swamped. So if the treasurer gets a bankruptcy notice on October 3rd for the October 1st sale, but it was file marked on the 30th of September, you will get your money back plus 6%. It's called an invalid sale. And unfortunately, the bankruptcy laws don't care about anybody but the debtor. That's what they're there for. And actual notice doesn't matter. Once that case is filed on September 30th, it's considered that everybody in the world knows about it. So, what the Indiana statute calls for is an invalid sale. And basically, you would be called, and they'd say, the bankruptcy was filed before the sale. We sold it illegally, in essence, or shouldn't have been on the list, and it was. So you need to, but you'll get 6% interest by statute. So you don't get your full. And the unfortunate part about that is the county pays the 6%. There's nobody else to pay it. The guy's in bankruptcy, and that can be, a substantial amount of money in certain properties that the county has to dig into. Out of their coffers and pay. Even though it's only 6%, it may only be a week or two. It can be, if it's a couple $100,000 property. So I'm glad we got into that. That usually doesn't come up. Yes, sir.
You're mentioning sheriff's sales throughout this evening.
Yeah.
I don't just spend a whole lot of time on it. Can you give us an idea of the differences?
Yeah, basically a tax sale is the county foreclosing their tax lien. A foreclosure sale, a sheriff's sale, is the mortgage company foreclosing their lien. It's a private cause of action. It's Chase Bank versus Joe Edwards. It's Fifth Third Bank versus Joe Edwards. And not only against Joe Edwards, but it's also, if you look at one of those complaints for foreclosure, it's going to list, all those interested parties I was telling you about, you guys are going to go out and find. If you file a foreclosure, they're listed as a defendant, all those people. Atlas Collections listed 5 times. Allied Adjustment, Delaware County EMS. These are all, everybody who's got a lien will get a summons and complaint in the sheriff's sale. And basically, the sheriff's sale process is so bogged down too. Indiana is one of the longest states to go from the filing of a complaint until an actual sale. Now, when your property sells at a sheriff's sale, there's no redemption. You basically had all this time already. It's a lawsuit, judgment, then they file a petition with the clerk to get a sale set. This whole process takes about 400 days from the date the complaint's filed for foreclosure. Ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, justice delayed is justice denied, I think.
So at a sheriff's sale, for example, if I go to a sheriff's sale, I
You get a
Buying
deed.
the property, I'm buying instead of the lien.
You'll get a deed that day in many cases.
Okay.
But it's risky because of the things I mentioned before. You have no way to really look at the property. The other problem too with,
You do know about whatever existing liens, right?
thank you.
I mean, if you buy a property, you don't have to go through the title searches and all that, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's all been done by the mortgage company. But one of the problems with foreclosure is the prices are not deals. Because, we went through that time here in Indiana everywhere, but Indiana seemed to be a little worse, where you had people loaning 150% on the value of properties. So these properties are now coming through to foreclosure. So the minimum bid at a sheriff's sale is set by the plaintiff, by the mortgage company, by Chase Bank and Fifth Third. That's who they're saying, okay, this is what we want to start the sale at. 98% of every sheriff's sale we do, and I don't know, we do about 10,000 a year, is bought by the bank. It's a credit bid. They're going in and taking $10,000 out of this pocket and putting in the other one, and then getting the deed. No money exchanges hands because they own the judgment, and they're paying, basically paying themselves off because there's no other bidders that will go that high.
So the minimum bid, is that the judgment to be satisfied?
Well, it isn't. It's close, though. I mean, if you look on our website, and if you go on there, and you'll see that at the very beginning, you'll see tax sale, sheriff sale, Zeus auction system, which are online sales. If you go to the sheriff sale, you'll see we list the properties, the sales coming up, and they'll list the judgment amount. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can kind of gauge it and say it's going to be close to that. But sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes a little lower. Sometimes, frankly, I have no idea where they got the number. There's no formula. They might go out. They do some last-minute appraisals, drive-by appraisals. Not the kind we think of in a fancy setting. So they'll do drive-by appraisals and then say, okay, well, look, we need to lower our minimum bid. This property's been trashed, or we need to raise it. It's worth more than what we thought. What does somebody from Chase Bank in Houston, Texas, or somebody from Fifth Third Bank in Manhattan know about a property in Eaton, Indiana? I mean, that's a real problem right now. Is if you got a property in your neighborhood who's sold on sheriff's sale, and you're thinking, I'm not going to pay 110% of the value, but I might give them 50%. Try to get somebody to talk to about that. Good luck. I mean, you can't find. I don't understand how banks think it's okay to sit on properties, millions and millions of dollars worth of assets for months. When everyone that I go to a sale, I never go to a sale that somebody doesn't say, I'd really be interested in that one. What can I do? I mean, I'm not going to pay this minimum bid. It's ridiculous, they'll always say. And I'll say, well, you can try to contact the mortgage company, which is the plaintiff, but good luck. I mean, it's always a big national conglomerate. I mean, occasionally we had a little farm credit company in Hartford City, and the local guy came from the bank, or whatever it was, credit union or whatever, and every farmer in the community was there. None of them bid on it because the price was too high, but they swarmed him right after the sale because they all were interested in buying it for what they knew it was worth, not for what the sale was for. But see, that doesn't happen. I mean, you don't have people there. You might have a representative who's really from the law firm.
All these houses sit there.
For months and months. How can the banks be, we've gone to the banks and said, we talked to banks and said, why don't you let us take these properties immediately from the sheriff's sale, put them online and sell them. I mean, the next day. Well, no, we don't talk to our committee. It's like worse than government. Cover your ears, you government people.
Troubled assets on the books, and that's why they're banks.
Right. Yeah, I think they have some tax advantages. They're not in a hurry, but I mean, it's kind of aggravating to all of you out there who have one next door to you. First of all, you got rodents and everything else because just sitting there deteriorating. There are some companies that clean these up, but they're not nearly as many companies clean them up as they have problems. So.
And they aren't living there.
No, they've long gone. We did Hendricks County Sheriff's sales when the United hub down there closed at the airport. When they had the mechanics, and those people, couples, a lot of times, both of them working for United, making $60 or $70 grand a year, and they have beautiful homes. those little subdivisions around Danville and places. Well, United Hub closed. I mean, our foreclosures in Hendricks County went, shoo. And these were beautiful homes. I mean, there's nobody here that'd be ashamed of living in any of them. But suddenly these neighborhoods were just weeds everywhere and broken windows and all the things that go along with it. So it's really, it's kind of continuation of the problem, because guess what? Most properties where people aren't paying the mortgages, they're not paying the taxes either. So we fixed the statute a few years ago, so any property that's on sheriff's sale, before it can be offered for sale, they've got to pay the taxes and or the redemption. So if you don't have to worry about sheriff's sale, if you buy a property on October 1st and sometime in the next year this property goes to sheriff's sale or is ready to go to sheriff's sale, you're going to get your money. You won't get the house, but you're going to get your money, because before it can be offered over here in the county building, they got to pay a redemption, or it won't go to sale. It'll be pulled off the sale. So they have to have evidence, a receipt or something that they pay that. So if you buy a property, you might hear people say, oh, I saw that property's on the sheriff's sale. Get in a big panic, you'll run down to the courthouse. It's not a panic. I mean, you're going to get, it's going to get redeemed if it's set for a sheriff's sale. Yes, ma'am.
You guys said there's maximum allowable attorneys and title search fees. How do you know what those are?
You'll find out the day of the sale. We'll get, the court order is signed typically 3 to 5 days before the sale, but I'll announce it. You'll be, by the time, if you come to that sale on October 1st and after tonight, you'll be so sick of hearing me that you'll think, oh my gosh, let's get this over with. But I will say everything I've said here, not quite as much, the morning of the sale, but including the details like payment terms, maximum allowable fees. They're generally in the 150, noticing costs are generally 150 to 250, and attorney's fees or the title search is 150 to 250. Attorney's fees are 4 to 5, 6. And just every county's different. We have some as low as 150, 350, and some as high as 750, 750 in one county. It doesn't make sense, but it doesn't cost $750 to get a title search. Yes.
If I may, my other question is, do you have to redeem the property? If it's burned down or you find out it's a toxic waste dump?
Well, you mean you have to take the property?
Do you have to get title?
No. In fact, I mean, you don't have to do any of this. You've lost your money. You lost your investment. Now, there's one thing I might add. This is kind of an interesting thing that's become more and more because of these kind of issues: social loss, social risk. If I buy a property at a tax sale, the minimum bid was $1,000, I pay $5,000. So I've got a $4,000 surplus, and I know what my interest and all that is. Well, I go through the process, doesn't redeem, pay my costs and all that stuff. Gets up to the last day or so, and I drive by the property, and it's flattened, burned, or whatever. I'm going to run immediately to the courthouse and redeem that property myself. The reason for that is I'll get my $4,000 back. That surplus I'll get back when I redeem it. Because who gets the surplus when the property redeems? The buyer. They get all their money back. So you would get, the only thing you would lose is your minimum bid amount, because you're not going to, you're going to be a little bit like a mortgage company. You're going to go in and say, I'm going to write the treasurer or auditor a check for $6,000, which is all my investment, my interest that I'm earning as buyer. And then you're going to turn around and get a check for $6,000. But see, you've already paid the taxes, so that's the only thing you're after. Does this make sense? If you have a surplus and you're not going to take a deed to it, go redeem it and get your surplus money back. So what happens is the day of the sale, when all the people come in and pay, that surplus money goes into a separate surplus account. It just sits there. They don't have pizza parties or anything fun with it. It just sits in an account. And then when the property gets redeemed, the owner comes in and pays a dollar amount that doesn't have anything to do with the surplus. The owner doesn't have to pay surplus. They pay interest on it. So the owner comes in and says, okay, I got to pay what was the minimum bid. I got to pay interest on the minimum bid, interest on the surplus, 137B costs. They write that check, and then the auditor goes over, pulls that other money out of that redemption fund, and then you as the buyer are whole. You got it all right here. So if you are a buyer who wants to redeem it to get your surplus back, that's the way you do it. It's going to cost you money, but you're still going to get that money back. Better than losing it all. So now this doesn't apply. It doesn't apply if they're in a surplus, because it doesn't make any sense to go in and write a check and get that same amount back dollar for dollar. So, but it does make sense if there's surplus.
You can do that before the year's up.
Yeah, you got this, anybody can redeem. Anybody can redeem a property. And in the old days, you couldn't do that. Only person can redeem was the owner. And we changed that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I mean, first of all, auditors shouldn't have check IDs. You know, and then you got spouses, and then you got heirs, and you got all these issues. Anybody can redeem. We don't care. As long as the money's green, we don't care who redeemed. So mortgage companies redeem now. Lien holders redeem now. People like a buyer who made a bad buy can redeem and get their surplus back.
Just lose money you put in the title search.
You're going to lose that money, title search. They're going to lose their 137B costs, and they're going to lose their basically the minimum bid amount, which was the amount, you know, on the list in your hand in the newspaper.
The house I'm looking at tonight, it's a newer home, but it's liable to go for a lot more than that bid.
Yeah. So if there's a surplus and something happens to that property, well, there's been buyers I've talked to that have said, you know, I couldn't afford it. I needed my surplus back because mama got cancer and my kid was in a wreck or whatever. I mean, we all have things in our life that make us change our approach, and our need for money changes. And I just moved a kid into IU, and my need for money changed drastically a few weeks ago. So you might think, you know, a year later, you made that investment, you had a bunch of money, so you could really use that $20,000.
That might be cheaper than trying to buy insurance on the title.
Right.
Because, you know, if you spend $30,000, $40,000 extra on the house,
Yeah, but you can redeem that.
redeem it, you're not risking that much.
You can redeem it at any time. You can redeem it before you incur the cost. Yeah.
What if the owner doesn't claim the surplus?
The surplus goes to the owner. First of all, the only time the owner can get a surplus is when you get a deed. So the owner can't come in before the 1 year. They can't come in before you've gotten your deed actually executed and get any of that money. But they can go in the day after the deed has been executed and claim that surplus.
So it doesn't go to the mortgage companies or nothing.
Only by court order. The only person can get that money other than the owner is somebody who has a court order. And it could be, you know, mortgage companies, just like with the properties that they own in sheriff's sale, they don't do anything. I mean, very rarely do you see a mortgage company come in and do anything. They just don't even know what's going on in their offices. They got too many, like I said, too many chefs boil the pudding. But, and then if nobody claims it, and there's a few, it's never a big amount of money because there's a lot of people out there looking. But after 3 years from the date of sale, that money goes to the county general fund, which sounds like it's a lot of money. It isn't, because there's people out there called bounty hunters, and they go out and find money for people, and they're combing those records a year. You know, after a year, they're getting copies of every record of every surplus from that prior year, because at that point the redemption period's over. So that money's fair game. So they're running around finding people wherever they can find them, saying, you know, I know where you can get 40 grand. Well, we changed that too, because there was a lot of abuse. A lot of people in nursing homes, you know, having 40 or 50 grand, they were giving them $1,000. I mean, horrible abuses. Now the statute says you have to have a signed contract, maximum 10%, which is fair, I think. I mean, collecting money for somebody at 10% is not bad. I mean, I think 50 and 60 and 70% is kind of bad, or more. But they have to, and also it has to be with a court order. In the old days, they could walk in with a power of attorney to the auditor. And now, you know, it's much easier to lie to the lady across the counter in the auditor's office than it is to lie to the lady up there that sits 4 feet higher than you wearing a black robe. I mean, I'm just saying, who can put you in jail if they find you lying? You know. So, yeah, we tried to tighten it up a little bit. It's just such a huge issue for so many years. Yes, sir.
You said anybody can redeem. If I buy a property, you can't redeem it, can you?
Sure I can, but why would I? I'm basically paying your taxes for you. I get nothing out of it.
If somebody else wants it, they don't get it if it.
Redeeming doesn't give you anything.
Okay.
I mean, I could walk in, you buy this property, or you're the owner, and she bought the property, and I'm like that guy that gave that $5,000 tip the other day in that little restaurant in Wyoming or someplace. I'm just one of those guys got more money than sense. I just want to do you a favor because I don't want you to lose your house. So I walk in and redeem the property. All I've done is basically taken your obligation off of you, taking it on me. I get nothing. She gets her purchase price back. She gets all the money that I paid. She gets it all. And you're free and clear. Your taxes are already paid because she paid them when she bought it, but you don't have to redeem it to keep it. So there's no advantage. The only people can, and this, believe it or not, this is an interesting question. People ask this kind of thing, you know, what if will I own the property if I go in and redeem it? No, but the owner will love you for doing it. So yeah, I would get nothing out of it. Why? It's the owners, mortgage companies. Those are who redeem properties.
Well, when you said anybody can do it,
Right, and because in the old days, if you were redeeming, no mortgage company, they would send you the mortgage company would send you the money. You have to go in with it and pay it. You had to be the owner. I mean, it was ridiculous, but there's a lot of laws that are ridiculous. Yes, sir.
I got another question. When you said you don't own the property, you're trespassing if you go on it, the building commissioner has a different opinion than for a moment.
I wonder what the sheriff would say. That's maybe that'd be the opinion I'd be worried about. Or worse yet, the Gaston Town Marshal. I mean, if I'm walking around some property or, putting something, trying to get in, changing locks. That's the big thing on the sheriff's department, changing the lock. And I'm changing the locks and the sheriff goes by and says, what are you doing here? I need to know you own this. I don't have any paperwork that says that. I don't have anything to reflect I own that property.
Well, I'm just talking about
Yeah.
mowing.
Well, they want you to mow it, and I'd never discourage people from mowing as long as you have a pretty good idea that there's nobody living there. Because again, I'm not, a double barrel. I mean, if I saw somebody mowing my yard, I'd wait till they got it done, then I'd get out the double barrel. And I'm happy to let them mow my yard for me. But yes, sir.
They can put a lien, they can mow it, the city or an entity.
Oh, they will lien. Oh, absolutely. They will put a lien on it. Yeah, there'll be a lien on it. Yes, sir.
I'm concerned about orphan properties in both senses. One is, can a sheriff sell some of these properties that get foreclosed upon by the mortgagee because there's a tax advantage to presenting losses on your books, both accrued interest as well as penalties that accrue. So in a sense, the federal government or the federal taxpayers are paying for that particular property in taxes not received by the mortgagee. And in a tax sale process, I'm sure of the 2,000 parcels that you mentioned that are coming up this fall, that probably 1,000 of them will not get sold because the minimum bid for them will exceed the market value. You can imagine some of the condition of these properties. They've been walked away by their owners. You can't fix them up. There's no economic value to fix them up.
Negative equity.
They become orphans as well too. All you can do is churn them over again next tax season with a similar outcome. So I'm concerned about the orphans that exist out there and what role, if any, you see for a county plan.
Well, yeah, first of all, if only 1,000 don't sell, it will be the best sale Delaware County's had in a long time.
No, I underestimate.
Yeah. I mean, no, you did, but it's, we were just talking about Evansville. Somebody here was following the Evansville sale, Vanderburgh County. Obviously, Vanderburgh's a lot bigger than Delaware. They had a sale last Friday with 400 to 500 properties, at least they started with, and they sold 150 or 200. Much smaller than what we have here. But you go to Madison, big. Vigo, big. I mean, this is what I consider, Wayne, bigger than most. Grant, bigger than most. It's the Rust Belt. I mean, it's the places that are still suffering from empty plants on every corner. I mean, it's sad. And in Kokomo, Howard County, my gosh, drive through there and look at all the empty plants. I mean, other than general, a couple of plants that are up and running, Christ or whatever. But it's sad, and I don't see that change anytime soon. Blight is a huge problem, and there's lots of people that think they have ideas on how to fix blight. The one thing that all those people miss when they talk about it is it all takes a heck of a lot of dough. And the only people that have been able to fix blight over the years are people that have these huge federal grants when they were doling out money for these neighborhood grants and stuff. But there are ways. There's lots of tools in the statute if counties use them. Wayne County uses a deed sale. They take all their properties to deed and sell them for deed. A person is more likely to buy a next door neighbor property that might need some work for $500 and get a deed than buy a lien and have to go through all this process and hire lawyers, title company. Nobody wants to go to a lawyer. Nobody wants to go to a title company, filing all these forms, got to run the courthouse. Or you could show up at a deed sale and pay $500 and walk away with a deed for the property. So that's one thing. I think we've gotten away from deed sales because what we call the certificate sale is much easier, cheaper, less liability. But Delaware County didn't have one last year. And that's a great way also, because what you do there is you take the leftovers and you sell them for substantially less than the amount of tax due. So you might have, you've got community development out demolishing properties. So you've got a property that you put a demolition lien of $5 or $6 grand on a vacant lot. Plus you put the taxes on, they now owe $7,000 on a 50-foot lot next to your house. You'd love to have that property to increase the value of yours, a place to plant your garden, a place to put your kids' gym set or park trashy cars, we hope not. But, so what are you going to do? You're not going to pay $7 grand for it, I can guarantee you. Would you pay $100? Probably. To increase the value of your property, you would own it. Then you're not trespassing. Obviously, it's not going to matter at that point. But that's, and then basically what happens in that case, once you get a deed, those taxes get written off. So it's a cost benefit for the county in the long term, but not in the short term. But it really is generally because it's not going to sell anyway. So next year it's going to be on there for $8 grand. The next year 9, the next year 10. Certified notices going out at $5 a chip. Every time this runs in the paper, it ain't free. The Star Press makes sure they gouge you every direction. Here it is. So what's going to happen? You know, it's going to be on there forever. And it has a negative equity because, well, that property doesn't really apply to negative equity. But what about those houses next to yours that are like this and are falling in? And you're going to have to tear them down, or they're going to fall down, or get demolished by the city. So there's a lot of people who can do that work a lot cheaper. If they have a deed to it, they're going to be willing to go in and take their bulldozers and get their buddies and come in and clean the property out.
Next year they're going to be paying taxes on it. Next year they're going to be paying taxes on that property. So.
Right. So long term, all about getting property on the tax rolls. That's the goal with the certificate sale. It's not, you're never going to see county commissioners walking out of a certificate sale going, woohoo, this was a great sale. But you are a deed sale, and that's what we do in Wayne County. Those commissioners love the deed sale. They walk out of there thrilled every year. I'm a believer in a hybrid. I'm a believer that some properties are great for deed sales. Some properties have people that are interested because they live next door, and they maybe want to tear them down or fix them up, either one. So it takes so much time and effort by people that work for the city and work for the county to analyze which ones are deed sale eligible, which ones are certificate sale eligible. And it ends up being, you know, by the time they get this research done after the sale, you're almost out of time. You're back to the next tax sale. So it's really, you know, a county like Blackford has done a great job. They've got a private-public partnership between some people in the community, retired realtors, the assessor, the auditor, and they have a great program. It used to be called the Demolition Coalition, which I loved, but they changed it to some stupid Better Blackford thing or something. But it's been successful. And part of it is analyzing which property should be on deed sale, which should be on certificate sale. Wayne County just does them all on deed sale. And it's a liability for them because they're taking deed to the property, so they're chain of title, and it costs them money up front, but they've never lost money. Because we've had properties, all it takes is one $20,000 bid, suddenly your costs are absorbed. And there are properties that they get those kind of bids on because they're buying a deed. So it's you know, the certificate sale is great, but most people, the little old lady who wants to buy the little lot next to her house, doesn't want to go hire a lawyer, doesn't want to have to worry about all this junk 137B forms, certified mail notices in her head starting to spin. I mean, it's just not what people generally, you know, that process intimidates people. They understand. You go to a sale, you put up your paddle, you bid, you go in, you pay for it, and you get a deed 2 weeks later. So it's really, there's so many tools available in the statute that aren't being used in any county, not just Delaware. I mean, Delaware's having a certificate sale annually until last year has been a great thing here. And there's a big push to have another one this year. Any of you know a commissioner or have a commissioner that you know, encourage them to have a commissioner certificate sale. They're the ones that call that. And we did them online. We've done them online the last 3 or 4 years. You don't even have to go to the fairgrounds. You can get on your internet and do it. So, and typically, if we do an internet sale, I put on a seminar that shows our online system. People can see how to use it so you're not intimidated by that. It's less intimidating than a live auction. Yes, ma'am.
I want to bid on a property for an out-of-state investor. How do I register?
However you want the certificate and the deed to read, that's what you need. You'll need a federal ID number, and you'll need the exact name of how they want to take deed to that.
Okay,
So-
does it have to be their federal ID number or mine?
Well, I want it to be theirs unless, because who's going to get the interest if it redeems?
They are.
Then I want it to be their federal ID number, because you're going to get, IRS is going to say, hey, you got interest income, lady, we're coming after you.
Okay, so can he go online and register and then just send me the paperwork?
Yes, oh, absolutely. And you just
And
walk in with that
cash.
paperwork, there'll be a 5-digit number on that, and that's all you need to have. Walk up to the gal at the sale, she'll put your bidder
Okay,
card.
so if I get the property and I go out, then everything's gonna be in his name, and then I just go up to the clerk's office and pay for it?
Treasurer's office, but yes,
Treasurer's office,
yes.
that's what I meant.
And you'll get,
So your proxies, are they,
well, by proxy, I mean, you know,
she wouldn't technically.
yeah, by proxy, I mean, in a setting like some auctioneer settings, you can't be here. So you say, I wanna buy that vacuum sweeper, but I'm gonna give you my $50 proxy. So I start the bid at 5. They bid 10, I bid 15 for you as a proxy. And I'd have to disclose that proxy, or I would want to, if I was doing that, because licensed auctioneer, we gotta play by all the rules. So a proxy bid online though is much different, because there are lots of proxies online. Our system allows that. For instance, if you don't wanna sit there all day and bid, the sale's open for 10 hours, you can go on the first hour and say, I'm gonna go 10,000, not a penny more, you can put in your 10,000 bid, go to work, you're done, you'll either get it or not. But the system will bid it out to as high as 10,000, but that's our online sale, so.
If he does not have a federal ID number, can he use his social security number?
Yes, as long as the IRS has a number to ding against for interest paid. Basically, the county has to send out their W-9s and all that, 1099s, whatever they call them. Yes, sir.
Now, you was talking about sheriff sales. Did it used to be that if you bought a house at a sheriff sale, you owed whatever was owed on it? That's what you,
No, I mean, there are instances where something like that could happen, but if you're serious about buying a property on a sheriff's sale, and it's a decent price, I mean, you're gonna invest some money, it can't hurt to have a lawyer look at the judgment document. That will explain. I can tell you, 99 out of 100, there's never an issue, because the judgment document takes just a plain old judgment against everybody. Sometimes if there's a second mortgage, there might be an issue between the first mortgagee and second, so. Yes, ma'am.
You said that a lot of times there's a lot of properties that don't sell at the,
Tons.
okay. So if the property I'm interested in doesn't sell, can I go talk to somebody about selling me the deed?
No, I mean, you can talk to the owner, but Indiana requires any property like that to be sold at a public auction. Now, there are some states that we work in, Florida is one, Iowa's another. If a property doesn't sell, you can buy it over the counter. Buy the lien, I mean, they're buying the property. You can walk in and say, I mean, in Florida, they wait. They're local buyers that are waiting on that list of unsolds because there are tax sales online, and so then they wait to a certain day, they publish that list. They swarm in there. First come, first serve. It's like buy it now on eBay. You get you pay the price. There's no competition. And Iowa does the same thing. Now, Indiana does not. So you can't buy a property over the counter. But I would say if a property doesn't sell that you're interested in, again, dial up the county commissioner's office. Talk to Patty or one of those gals and just say, or if you know commissioners, you know Larry Bledsoe from work or in the community, you see him, say, hey, there's some properties on that list. I'd like to see them on a certificate sale. And that would be a sale that would take place probably in the winter or early spring. And the difference between the certificate sale and this sale, redemption period is only 120 days, 4 months. So you can get a deed on a certificate sale. You can get a deed quicker, depending on when the sale's held. I think they ought to be held sooner than later, because the later you wait, the more people lose interest. If you have a tax sale, the commissioners could act as quickly as by the end of October. They could say, we're doing a certificate sale. We could have the certificate sale in December, and you could have a deed long before your 1 year period on a regular tax sale, because you only have a 4-month redemption. So the idea is to expedite it. I mean, it's to get these properties back on the tax rolls quicker.
Well, so then, I guess I thought maybe that would be for a onesie, the best deal, but then are these banks and mortgage companies gonna come in and they're gonna buy the deeds?
They aren't. They won't, no.
They're cross-referenced by that.
Yeah, because here's why. These investors only have one thing in mind. If they get a deed, they made a bad buy. They want the interest. And so they're not, and the properties that slip through the cracks, that didn't sell, are typically not the ones they're gonna redeem. They've done their homework. They know all the numbers. And they say, oh, it's not gonna redeem. I don't want it. I don't wanna go to my boss and say, I got a deed to this property over here on Meeker, and he's gonna say, what the hell for? You know, you're fired. I mean,
When did the Overbey County stop having this deed sale then?
well, they stopped having a deed sale when the certificate sale came in.
Oh,
And
that's not the
Right,
same.
right, it's different, because the certificate sale, still you're buying a lien, you just have this shortened redemption period. And it's the ones that didn't sell. But the reason the county quit having a deed sale several years ago, first of all, the certificate sale law came into effect, which we never had before, and it's easier and cheaper, which county attorneys seem to like, because they don't have a liability issue, it doesn't cost them anything. But for a deed sale, they gotta do title searches, noticing, just as if they were a buyer. The counties have to pay all that. The county gets the deed, and then they sell the deed. So really, the cost was a part of the reason, although Wayne County, like I say, they never veered off course, because they always made enough to pay the costs. They just had to front it for 9 months or whatever.
Is there, if people, like, sometimes when you sell real estate, or list real estate, they'll say, for owner, or maybe when you get a mortgage or something, they wanna know if you're gonna live in it, or if it's gonna be an investment property. Could they make it where you're gonna live in it, opposed to an investment property, and people just borrow against that and never develop that property or fix it as?
Well, some counties have tried to put conditions on those deed sales. But part of it is, I'm not sure they really care that it's gonna be an owner. I mean, developers might say, well, I'm gonna put 10 grand into it, and make this nice, and then sell it. Either way, it's back on the tax roll. So counties that try to put conditions on that have not had great success with it. Yes, sir.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be an online tax sale on May?
That's the certificate sale we're talking about.
That is the certificate.
Yeah, and whether we have one hadn't been decided. There's some movement toward that. Whether it's online or live hasn't been decided. I would encourage it to be online. And it might not be as late as May. I would encourage them to do it sooner. But I don't always get my way. No reason to wait till May. That gets too close to another tax collection time. Now, everybody right now, with those pins I gave you, and on that paperwork, write down this email address. See, all those people left early, they didn't get my email address. Although it's all over the website. J. Edwards at SRI hyphen or dash if you're from Gaston, taxsale.com. And the only time I'm not on my email is when I'm doing seminars and tell everybody to shut off their phones. So, but I will, probably by the time I get to the interstate, I'll have all my emails answered. Shh, don't tell. Oh, aren't we a little judgmental? Well, then I'll save my emails till I get home, but I will be Facebooking all the way home. Because that's legal. Facebooking is legal. It's only emails and text messages. You can, yeah. I had fun the day that went into effect, what was it, July 1st, a couple years ago. I said, I'm driving down the road on Facebook, posted it on Facebook. I'm posting on Facebook, which is perfectly legal in Indiana. Yeah, but I'm a believer that any kind of distracted driving is bad for people who can't handle distracted driving. Coffee drinking, sandwich eating, doing makeup. I see people reading papers, which I would never do. My thing I won't do is look at a map, because I've had so many near accidents looking at maps while I'm driving. And I've never had I think I'm not going to text in the middle of a rush hour around 465 in a rainstorm. But when I'm driving down I-69 and I can't see a car in any direction, I'm gonna park that in the middle of the road and get some work done. Okay, judge me now.
Let's say thank you to Mr. Edwards. If you
I
have
can
any
ask right now.
additional questions,
Thank you.
I want to be mindful of your time. And at the back of the room, there are some flyers of additional workshops that we will have for the rest of the month if you're interested in some of the other things that we're doing. This will be aired on Channel 60. I'm not sure when, so just keep your television on that channel. But if there are questions or some things you're still a little fuzzy about, you might take a look at that. They have a great website. You can take a look at that also. And please use your handouts. Again, thank you for coming. And if you have some additional questions, I'm sure he'd be willing to stick around for a few moments. Thank you.